Master Tavern Keeper's History of the Old World. And so, that was a skirmish at Dungle Hill. Victory for those allied against McDeath, and the death of the Dark Mage, Ian McCrecker, at the hands of his halfling. By the way, did Rabies survive the battle? Oh, he did indeed, and eventually ended up in the settlement of Bowler Hat. He first went on to become a renowned baker, and then later a very influential community leader. Ah, excellent. That is the sort of happy ending I like to hear. But what about the cost in blood for Donalbain and his allies that day? Was the butcher's bill for their victory steep? Oh, well, there had been losses for sure, but they'd been surprisingly light considering. The blessings of some deity or other were definitely upon the venture. And what of the treasure chests that had been hidden in the burning windmill? Oh, yes, well remembered. Well, the gold was apparently recovered, although the chests themselves didn't survive the blaze, as you could imagine. Well, at least that was some recompense for the dwarves. So, what came next? The road to Runsanane, the castle of McDeath, now seems clear, but if I recall correctly from the play, there is still one part of the puzzle missing. What of Klinty's wood? What? You can't mean the knife for hire, Klimt Eastford, the infamous mercenary? Ah, no, not him. I meant the wood, as in a forest. The forest of old Klinty, over there in Albion. Oh, yeah, I see. My mistake, Master Tavern Keeper. Please forgive me. But they do sound the same there, Heinrich, so I shouldn't worry too much. But in response to your question, Master Tavern Keeper, indeed, that is where our story leads us next. And specifically to the glade of Bowling Glen, deep within the forest, just south of the castle of McDeath there. The glen was the meeting point for the winding road from Winwood, and the track coming from the nearby settlement of Dungle Hill. This was the natural place for the forces of the heir, Donalbain, and the clansmen of his tricksy ally, Julia McCuman, to muster. It's also here that the Alliance made their final preparations for the push onto the castle, but the ancient wood had a surprise in store for those who opposed the king.
Mirgray, please tell me, old friend, have the McCumans arrived yet? For the whiskey is almost at an end.
Aye, my lord, they reached our camp an hour ago. Julia's in high spirits, having laid her rivals low.
This news gladdens my bosom. Now we can make our final push. Let us string our bows and sharpen our blades and prepare for the ambush.
The trees, my lord. The trees have come to life. Look, yonder five are in the camp. Each one no doubt bearing strife.
Greetings, man things.
The sudden appearance of the treemen sent the camp into a panic, with men racing to grab their weapons, don their armour, and the like, whilst their leaders shouted a confusion of orders, all of which were thankfully ignored. But it was the slow, deep voice of the lead treeman, Klinty, his gnarled bark stretching and cracking as he spoke, that caused everyone to stop. My lord Prince Donalbain, I cannot say if what this thing speaks is true, but it'd be folly to waste our men on these, if by talk his intentions we can construe.
Aye, So speak, Threeman, what do you want? You have the ears of the heir. You know that we were opposed to McDeath and intend to march upon his lair.
I am Klinty, and this wood is mine. For over 2,000 years have I and my kin lived here. In peace and tranquility, we have slept and rested, drifting into the myths of you man-things. But now is the time to arise, for our peace has been shattered. Orcs burn and hack at my people, using their timber flesh to make their instruments of war, and the wild children who slept in our branches and under our roots have been hunted down and murdered for sport. We would march with you, man-things, against the ruler of the orcs, to the castle in the mountains, the den of the black-souled McDeath. Will you march with us?
Now, upon hearing this statement, there was much discussion amongst the leaders of the alliance. Arcus Argyle, the leader of the dwarves, was against the idea. He claimed he had a secret way into the castle and that they didn't need the help of a bunch of creaky old shrubs, as he called them. The clan laird, Docko McCooligan, also had his own plan to break in, and so he too was against the treemen getting involved in their plot. However, Julia McEwen was all for the idea, as was Dart, the Earl of Harkness, and Murgrey, the magician. Donald Bain decided to go with the majority, and the aid of the treemen was accepted. Oh, yeah, and so what was the plan? How were these treemen going to help the alliance get into the castle? Well, now this is the cunning part. For Klinty told the leaders of the alliance that many of the trees in his ancient wood were once sentient creatures, just like him, that had roamed the old forest of the island. But as the years had gone by, they each had become more and more sedentary, and eventually stopped moving altogether, coming to rest in his wood, and placing themselves into the care of Klinty and his treemen, and slipping into dormancy, let's say. It was this season of rest that the orcs and goblins of McDeath had disturbed with their blades, fire, and blood, and it was this that had stirred Klinty to seek revenge. The treeman offered to awaken his charges and bring the whole wood to the gates of Runsanain. Amongst the cover of the marching trees, the forces of the Alliance too could get all the way up to the castle unobserved. It was too tempting an opportunity to pass up. But you said that both Docko McCooligan and Arcus Argyle also had ways of getting into the castle. What were these then? Indeed. Well, the McCooligans had brought along the dray, carrying the 12 kegs of whiskey that they'd stolen from the maltmen of Loch Lorne after the massacre. Docko intended to use the now empty barrels to smuggle 12 of his men into the main courtyard and ensure that the small gate, known as the Sallyport Gate, was open, He and the rest of his men would be waiting outside this gate. Archer Zargle, on the other hand, and the few remaining dwarf minders had a different route into the castle. Long ago, Macbeth had paid the dwarf to build an escape tunnel from the castle cellars into a nearby glade. Zargle intended to use this to enter the castle. He told Donalbain of his plan in secret and encouraged him to come with the dwarves. This would take them straight into the dungeon and the place where they were most likely to find Donalbain's kidnapped younger brother, Prince Charles. Donalbain agreed, but insisted that Murgray, John Quickshire, and his squire, Sandra Pangle, Dart, and the surviving Knights of Harkness also accompany them. Archer begrudgingly agreed. Donalbain also had another route in, for he had spies in the court of Macbeth who had guaranteed that the main gate would be open, and so he bade the McCumans and the Treemen to storm the castle from there. But Julia McCuman, whilst allowing her clansmen to deploy there, herself refused and said that she would accompany the prince in using the secret tunnel. She also brought along the brute Fergus and her bodyguard Yorkson. And so, with that, gentlemen, I think that the stage is set for the final battle at Runsanine Castle.